This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, the South Island woke to the news 2 people had tested positive for the Delta variant of COVID-19 in Christchurch. An Otago public health expert warns it's only a question of time before the pandemic reaches the lower south. And there are no longer financial penalties for returning late library books at Dunedin public libraries. Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa, good evening, ko Melissa Barton aho. The South Island had a wake-up call this morning, with news the Delta variant of COVID-19 has now reached Christchurch, following one case in Blenheim last week. Many southerners were concerned that could lead to a change in restrictions, with Christchurch potentially moving back up to Alert Level 3.
COVID-19 response Minister Chris Hipkins sharing an update many were hoping for.
After considering the public health risk assessment this morning, the government's agreed to hold Christchurch at its current alert level setting of Alert Level 2.
News broke this morning of 2 people in the same Christchurch household testing positive for COVID-19 Delta. This Dunedin couple were in Christchurch and didn't believe what they were hearing.
I kind of thought it was a joke at the start because it was one of my friends who told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, I searched it up straight away when I woke up. Because he told me and I didn't believe him, searched it up and I was like, saw it was true. I was like, just buzzed out, kind of. But yeah.
Balclutha man Patrick McKenna was passing through Christchurch on his way back from a sports tournament in Nelson. He's pretty philosophical about this wave of the pandemic reaching the south.
It's only a matter of time, I guess, before it started making its way. Like last week it was in Blenheim. Last weekend it was in Blenheim and now it's here, so it's just sort of just the inevitable now.
Minister Hipkins says the Christchurch pair are now in managed isolation and are helping piece together their movements despite a lack of scanning in. The Ministry of Health has revealed 9 locations of interest across Christchurch, with locals being urged to keep track of their movements. In Dunedin, the South Today.
There was a heightened sense of tension in the south after the news broke, with supermarkets and other stores reporting queues this morning. The Christchurch cases follow a warning to the Dunedin City Council from a public health expert who told them Delta is coming.
Just yesterday, Dunedin City Councillors heard from public health expert Associate Professor Alex McMillan via video link about how to manage cases of COVID in the community. She gave a timely warning that COVID-19 is likely to be heading south.
Delta is coming. This is now inevitable. One case already in the South Island, and a shift in the way that the government and public health are managing COVID towards high rates of vaccination and opening up of the traffic light system. And what this means is that we are going to see cases in Dunedin pretty soon, and we'll have to then manage not having our health system overwhelmed.
Her suggestions to help manage possible cases of COVID in the community included a 30km/h speed limit, which she believes could help reduce transmission of the virus.
Enabling safe walking, cycling and getting about by wheelchair are also important pillars in our Delta response. During more open levels where there are cases but businesses are still open, these are the safest ways to travel for the whole community.
Following her video submission, Alex McMillan was grilled by councillors. The government has kept the entire South Island at Level 2 restrictions, with mask wearing mandatory in public buildings and transport.
The public health assessment from the Ministry of Health to date was that because we had those Level 2 restrictions already in Christchurch, that helps reduce risk, and at this time we weren't in a position where we needed to move to Level 3, but we take constant advice on that.
The government is encouraging everyone to record their movements with the COVID Tracer app. In Dunedin, the South Today.
One person has died overnight following a single car crash in the Southland town of Riverton. The car hit a power pole just after 8 last night. Meanwhile, a teenage driver accused of killing 2 people and leaving 2 others critically injured in a crash near Dunedin has been declined bail. The 17-year-old appeared by video link in the Dunedin Youth Court yesterday afternoon, following the 2-car crash at Waihola on Saturday, which left 2 women dead. He's charged with 2 counts of dangerous driving causing death and 2 of dangerous driving causing injury. Judge Emma Smith declined bail, remanding the teen in custody without plea. A Give a Little appeal for the victims' families has already raised almost $20,000. Dunedin's public libraries are planning to axe overdue charges and penalty fees for books and other items. The Dunedin City Council has agreed to remove overdue charges for books returned past their due date in the future, with past fines being wiped.
The first signs are in place. There'll be no more overdue fines charged at Dunedin public libraries.
Well, it's a significant change, Daryl, and what the Council has approved yesterday at its meeting was to remove all the overdue charges for library items, so that if anyone returns an item late, from now on they won't be charged the normal overdue charges.
The decision's set to wipe nearly $80,000 off Dunedin Public Library's bottom line, which they'll make up somewhere else.
In the report that I provided to Council, on an annual basis, we receive just under $80,000 in overdue charges, so that the library will have to look at how that is managed going forward.
Until this morning, borrowers were charged 50 cents per item each day for standard issues that were overdue for return, and $1 a day for the more recent hot picks. Hawke says some items will still attract a lending fee, including recently purchased books and DVDs. He says today's changes are in line with global trends.
Libraries around the world are picking up on the impact of overdue charges, which basically are a barrier to people using libraries, and some quite significant libraries overseas have already removed overdue charges, and by significant I mean libraries like the Chicago Public Library, San Francisco Public Library, and all of the 3 public library systems in New York have removed library overdue charges.
Public Libraries New Zealand is undertaking a campaign for New Zealand libraries to become fine-free by 2025. Yesterday's approval by Council will mean people who've had overdue fines sent to debt collectors will have those accounts wiped as well. In Dunedin, the South Today.
It's estimated more than 650,000 people hunkered down across the country this morning as part of New Zealand Shakeout. These children at St Joseph's School in Oamaru were among those across the country covering their bodies or diving under their desks at 9:30 this morning. Shakeout is a nationwide initiative aimed at reminding people what to do during an earthquake and tsunami. The young Oamaru pupils demonstrated the stop, drop and hold techniques in their school hall before heading out to practice a tsunami evacuation.
The easiest thing is to check that tall and heavy furniture is secured by using brackets or straps. The other things we can do is look at the foundations, check whether they're securely attached to the property, and we can look at our chimneys, whether they're look at removing or strengthening chimneys.
There are a number of active fault lines in North Otago. St Joseph's School is also just 200 metres from the Oamaru shoreline, putting the school in a yellow tsunami evacuation area. A Dunedin-based poet is no longer afraid of embarrassing himself in front of strangers. Rushi Vyas has discovered dancing in the octagon helps improve his creative writing.
Embarrassing for some, but more like creative therapy for Rushi Vyas. The Dunedin poet and writer has taken to dancing by himself to jazz music in local spots such as the Octagon. He says rituals like dancing in public places can help stimulate creative ideas in his writing.
Usually right after these rituals I'll go to the page and I'll start writing. And what I'm really interested in is what do these actions do to the words on the page? What does it free up creatively?
Vyas grew up in the USA in a Hindu family, moving to Dunedin 2 years ago to work on a PhD at the University of Otago. He's researching how Semitic rituals like this can influence creative writing. Cutting the cord is another of his rituals, a way of undoing a coming-of-age ceremony in Hindu culture.
I think in these rituals I'm looking at the sort of attachments to certain cultural ideas that have been embedded in me from childhood, and the rituals provide a vehicle for me to practice what it would be like to let go of some of those ideas and to make room for new ideas.
Vyas believes performing where strangers might see him adds an additional energy to his ceremonies.
I do dance by myself, at home like many people do, but by bringing this out into a more vulnerable space, a more public space, it's again helping me practice actually moving my body differently when people are watching, when people might be around.
And he's keen to inspire others to try out Semitic rituals, with a workshop this Friday as part of the New Zealand Young Writers Festival. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on the South Today. Find out how New Zealand households may be subsidising cheaper power for the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter. And we have this week's edition of Global Insight with International Affairs commentator Professor Robert Patman. So catch this and more after the break.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
Every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
Welcome back. The Electricity Authority says New Zealand households may be paying an extra $200 a year for their power. They're suggesting consumers may effectively be subsidising the cheap energy received by the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter. The authority claims power generators, Meridian and Contact Energy, sell electricity to the smelter for $500 million less than it cost to produce. The smelter near Bluff is the country's biggest energy user, with the discount helping keep the operation in New Zealand. However, Meridian Energy says the analysis incorrectly speculates that if the smelter had closed this year, wholesale prices would have dropped for residential customers. In today's Global Insight, Professor Robert Patman discusses how the international community must negotiate with the Taliban to prevent a looming humanitarian crisis within Afghanistan. The international affairs commentator says steps need to be taken to prevent ISIS-K violence in the region and beyond.
Less than 2 months after United States and NATO troops withdrew from Afghanistan, a humanitarian crisis is looming. Welcome, Robert.
Good morning, Bruce.
What has happened in Afghanistan since the Taliban took over control again back in August?
Well, the Taliban have struggled to assert control, having seized power, and the country is facing a major humanitarian crisis as well as a deteriorating security situation, and those two factors together are creating something of a perfect storm. And at the moment, Afghanistan seems to be teetering on the brink of major problems. In humanitarian terms, many of the medical institutions in that country, medical facilities, are short of funds. The World Bank indicated they had frozen money that was earmarked, something like 600 million was earmarked for healthcare in Afghanistan. That money's been frozen, and so that is having a big impact. So the number of functioning medical facilities in Afghanistan has dipped alarmingly. There is a situation in a country of more than 36 million people where something like half the population could be facing serious food shortages in the near future.
So what should happen immediately and what should happen in the longer term?
I think immediately there has to be, a rethink by the international community of engaging with the Taliban government. The Taliban government is facing an insurgency at the moment. The ISIS-K group are basically at war with the Taliban. This group was responsible, our viewers may recall, for that appalling suicide bombing in Kabul International Airport just in the latter stages of the international evacuation from the airport at the end of September. They've gone on to commit other atrocities since then within Afghanistan, including the beheading of a Taliban official. So in effect, Afghanistan's teetering on the brink of civil war. Given that situation and given the potentially horrific humanitarian situation where many ordinary Afghans are suffering, I think the international community needs to have an initiative and try and have a dialogue with the Taliban. And of course it should not be unconditional dialogue. There's several things that need to be resolved. The Taliban have been ambiguous in their commitments towards women's rights. They've said they're going to safeguard them. They used all the inclusive language in the build-up to taking power in Kabul, but that language hasn't really followed through into concrete actions. We've been speaking about ISIS-K. The Taliban had given commitments to the Americans, to the Trump administration, that they would not allow Al-Qaeda to become active in their country. Once again, there seems to be something of a slippage between declaratory policy and substantive policy. Al-Qaeda are certainly present. Given the complexity of the situation in Afghanistan, the international community does have to step up and establish a dialogue with the Taliban, not because to legitimize the Taliban necessarily, but to help ordinary Afghans who are really the victim of this appalling situation.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Ka kite anō.
And you can watch the full interview with Professor Patman online at odt.co.nz. Still to come on the South today. 3 earthquake-prone buildings are demolished in Dunedin, and we take a look at tomorrow's weather for you. So see you after the break.
MTF Finance can help you turn the key on your next vehicle with a loan made just for you. TCs and lending criteria apply.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Every reason, every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell Menswear, it fits.
Thanks for staying with us. Major demolition work has been keeping contractors busy in South Dunedin, taking down 3 earthquake-prone buildings. The southbound lane of King Edward Street was closed to traffic last night and also on Tuesday between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. The demolition work included removing the old fire-damaged Wolfenden and Russell shop in South Dunedin's Main Street, along with 2 other adjoining buildings. Detours were in place during the partial road closures. Clearing the old buildings will make way for a large modern retail development and office space, along with 40 car parks. And now recapping tonight's top stories on the South today. The South Island woke to the news 2 people had tested positive for the Delta variant of COVID-19 in Christchurch. An Otago public health expert warns it's only a question of time before the pandemic reaches the lower south. And there are no longer financial penalties for returning late library books at Dunedin public libraries. And now look at what's happening in tomorrow's ODT. Welcome, Barry Stewart.
Hello, Mel. What's happening? Well, we can't go past COVID, can we? It's made its way to the south, so we're all scrambling and preparing for what needs to be done. And parts of Macrae's mine were being deep cleaned today following a visit from someone connected to the Christchurch cases. So
that's too close for home.
Well, it just illustrates, doesn't it, the flight of this particular virus and how we have to be ultra careful about our precautions and safety. So a real strong wake-up call. And of course, we'll have more on the developments in Christchurch itself in the paper tomorrow. So what was once a small quiz has become a national battle of minds, with thousands of pupils logging on to test their knowledge. So the ODT Extra Current Events Quiz took place today, and with more than 1,000 teams made up of 3-member teams, so 1,000 3-member teams, participating in the online quiz. So, and the winners were, well, you'll have to buy the paper tomorrow and find out. But yeah, an exciting development for our extra quiz. It's going from strength to strength, so we're very excited about that.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Find out who the winners are tomorrow in tomorrow's ODT. And now it's time for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Looking at the situation, showers and maybe a few afternoon thunderstorms will be developing inland tomorrow, but it should be mostly fine nearer the coast. Looking at the northwest, it's a wet day here with showers for both Westport and Greymouth. Westport sees a high of 17 and Greymouth 16. Moving to the northeast, it's changeable with spring weather here with a high of 19 in Nelson and 20 in Blenheim with thunderstorms. Moving down to Canterbury, the wet weather continues here with 16 degrees for both Christchurch and Kaikoura with showers, and Ashburton has rain and a slightly lower 15 degrees. Looking at what's in store for the southern towns. The Catlins can expect light winds with cloudy skies and a high of 16 degrees. It will be a little warmer. And travelling westwards to the Central Lakes. Wanaka, Queenstown and Alexandra are all in for light northerlies with a risk of thunderstorms and highs around 18 or 19 degrees. Te Anau can expect light winds with a risk of showers and a high of 17 degrees. Along the coast, Timaru and Oamaru are in for moderate northeasterlies with mostly cloudy skies and a high of 18 degrees. Further inland, Twizel and Amarama can expect light northerlies this afternoon with thunderstorms and a high of 19 degrees. In Dunedin, there'll be low cloud and mist tonight with an overnight low of 9 degrees. It should be mostly cloudy on Friday with a few light showers at times and light variable winds. A high of 16 and a low of 8. And it will be mostly cloudy but dry on Saturday. Expect warmer temperatures with freshening northerly winds. A high of 20 and a low of 11. And in Invercargill, the forecast is for low cloud and mist tonight with an overnight low of 8 degrees. Expect changeable weather tomorrow with afternoon showers and thunderstorms likely, but it should be mostly dry at other times with sunny periods and broken cloud. There'll be mild and humid weather with light northerly winds, a high of 18 and a low of 9. Northwesterlies should freshen on Saturday with cloud increasing. Expect some rain to develop later during the day, a high of 19 and a low of 9. And that's all the news for this Thursday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. You can follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Like and subscribe to be notified of southern news as it happens. Nō reira, kia pai te pou, ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.